Okay, first of all, good morning and very nice to see you all here. Okay. I think today, let me just continue the subject matters from what we said from yesterday. Okay. Maybe we try to introduce that the path of liberation in a little bit detailed or elaborate way, maybe. Okay. 讲这个东西，我对，maybe I just went on the board with that. So I think yesterday I give some of the simple pictures of what is samadhi is, and then what is vipassana. And then I think maybe best first we back to the story of the Buddha. I think most of people might know here when the Prince Siddhartha left the palace, and then he renounced his life as so-called from kind of like from prince life into a household, what's called the renounced life, and into the recluse life, and as a renounced. And then general understanding, he spent 6 years for his practices. Well, actually, the first when he just left, I think he had followed 2 teachers, right, to do case of practice, or you could say meditation. And one teacher, why starting I can't remember the name, but anyone can even remember, because I'm so bad just to remember the name. One teacher is called, I know the second teacher is Alala Kala. No, what was the teacher name? It's all right. If I doesn't. Anyway, the second teacher I know is Ramaputra. Okay. And he followed the first teacher. So, what did he do when he followed the first teacher? He was learning maybe somehow similar to what you're doing now. He was learning some kind of focus technique, concentration, what we call samadhi. He was following those techniques. But one of the interesting thing is after he learned the technique under the first teacher, it was said, but there was different version of saying. But in general, I would just say that in general picture, he able to enter what we call the 4 jhana. Yeah. So he was able to enter the 4 jhana, but some other versions say, because we have so many different versions, either from Tibetan or either from Pali or either from Chinese, especially Chinese have many different period of time. Actually, most of the master from foreign country to China, I don't know what it means by foreign country. Anyway, from other country to China, so the first thing usually they translate is the story of the Buddha. That's a basic thing when you want to really have a missionary work, right? You need to tell who is the founder of the teaching, and also since we talk about taking refuge to the Buddha, definitely you need to introduce who is the Buddha. Historically who is it. So that's why if you collect all these different versions, have a little differences. Some said the first teacher he followed Alalakarama, what he learned the meditation up to the 4 jhana. Some said up to what we call this. I don't even remember the English, but anyway, it's maybe I just translate pervasive. Space. Okay. So up to the meditation to the state of the pervasive state. But that's all actually still, all these two stages are still belong to the Samadhi technique. Okay. Now, why he went there, so why he will learn this thing? You know, if you are, when someone be renounced, you still have a choice. So almost like in general in India, if you are, you could still keep becoming like a spiritual teacher as a householder, still stay as a householder. But when you, as a spiritual teacher as a householder, most of the time, they are more like doing something called, actually in Sanskrit it's called prasada. It means more about the, now this is another thing about Chinese. The word strata is called faith in English. Okay. And in English, Chinese it's called sin. Prasada. It's also, but I think I don't know if in English translate what, but maybe we usually, this is just my translation. If I translate, I would say devotional faith. And in Chinese also translate as sin. But in Sanskrit it's two different terms. Now, if as a householder, like when I say household nowadays, like you understand the Hindu priest, and they get married, they stay as a house. They always have, when they wake up in the morning, as a priest, that's the compulsory job. But as a lay person, some householder, when lay person, if they are very devoted, they also do almost the same thing. But of course, as a priest, you have much more ceremony. When you wake up, the first thing you need to pray to the God. So you have a statue of the God, but not necessarily earlier time. Earlier time they might have just a simple like a stone, you know. But later on, because influenced by the Buddhist culture, then the sculpting comes because of they borrowed the technique from Greek, you know, after the Alexander, you know, conquered the so-called conquered the East, right? So that's why they learned this sculpture skill, and that's how we start to have a Buddha statue. And then the Buddha actually, not the Buddha statue found, we have this so-called the mural painting and start to have a little statue to depict the story of the Buddha. And later on the Hindu also follow after. Okay. A lot of people have a very wrong picture. They always think actually in India religion, the earliest statues or all these things comes from Hindu. Not true. It's all come from Buddhism. But later then the Hindu borrow that. But what I want to say that now, as a priest, what they will do is, of course, they have a symbolic like a linga, okay, the phallus of the god Shiva, you know, and in kind of like even in Japan, I know that, and there were certain places they worship the phallus, right? Anyway, this what they will do in this kind of tradition is that they have to always please the god, that by chanting the mantra, every god have different mantra. So, and they have to light, put some incense, and they have the fire, and doing this thing, and have offering, and keep there. Now it's very similar to now you know the Buddhist also. That's why now you understand how Buddhist culture come later on. You know. This is how even ancient time, more than 2,000 years, maybe 3,000 years, they keep this kind of tradition also. And if you don't please the God, of course they always believe it's not very good. Okay, well, for the registration. Now the Buddha, of course, not very keen in this part. No, this is why when he decided when the Prince Siddhartha decided to become to renounce to follow a certain path. Imagine if Siddhartha was a prince, right? No, definitely no any father will allow that, happy about that. I'm sure even now, right? Nowadays we know about more politics now. And nowadays we have much more material in a certain way that even if you don't want the princess, fine. You know, I don't need to be a princess, fine, but still it's not that easy. But imagine in old days, it's not that easy. It's not about your decision, but it's also you really have a strong family pressure on you, right? Or the relative pressure. But that's why you definitely have to understand the picture in a different way. Of course his father, Prince Siddhartha's father, Suddhodana knew that his son actually have a kind of really strong renouncing mind. So that's why he asked him, why don't you just follow this way? This is what is our tradition. So he doesn't want this kind of devotional faith. It's not his interest. Of course, at that time in India, they have this kind of more on certain type of this way. Okay, this is another thing. That faith means almost now they could use a term like scientific. That it's not because I believe in a God and I serve the God and I get the blessing from the God, but it's more like I can see it, I can feel it, it has something that I really can experience it, you know. When I say scientific, mean somehow like I can prove it at least. I don't mean that I need to prove it to others, you know. It's not just purely I believe, you know. I can prove it. So this is very clear. When he left, he would never follow this way. So that's the reason why when they said the first few years when he left, he was learning the meditation under the Karama to learn the jhana. Why? Because this thing is something you feel it immediately. And does it have to do with religion? Yes. Because in that day, and certain teachers, at least that those teachers claim that when you have this jhana, you will reach, for example, like yesterday we will mention, so say that we have this upachara samadhi. I mean, you have this access concentration. When you have this access concentration, then with this as a base, you can reach like the first jhana, second jhana, and then the third jhana, and then the fourth jhana, and go beyond it. Then you have what I call the pervasive space, and okay. So then the Buddha under the teacher, he very quickly he can attend that stage. You have to imagine that in those days you have to be really follow the teacher, stay with them, you know, serve the teacher, and then also live with the community. And then now you get the opportunity, the teacher will teach you. At first you must be very busy to clean the place, help out, cooking, all sort of thing. Not like now you're very lucky and just, you know, go for a party and then now you can come for the class. It's very different. But you really have to devote your time, your life and everything to the community, to the place. And then you may be allowed to. There's almost like there's nothing like, oh, I want you to learn, please teach me. They don't care. You have to really serve the community first, right? So, and then now, so he you know, imagine that as a prince, he can really forget about his, as a noble person, royal family, such a, in those society, and even now actually, imagine in those society, in those times, he could really don't care about that. He just wanted to put his life on searching what is mean by the truth. Then the prince that quickly he can learn the first jhana, the second jhana, third jhana, and fourth jhana. And then, as I say, there were two versions saying, say that he said he attend the fourth jhana and the pervasive space, or either. That's what the stages the Alankarama know. And they believe that once you receive up to meditate up to that stage, mean you are staying with the God already. But still, the divine, or so-called the God is certainly still in Indian religion, is very important. But the only difference is that it's unlike this so-called prasada way, the different kind of like devotional faith way, that you just serve the God, you please them, offer food for them, always chant the mantra, or always they all God have different mantra in India. So like, you know, and then you or even sometimes even you need to anyway, during different like this how do you call it? During a different time, you need to like have fasting also. Just do the fasting for the God, you know. Then because by pleasing the God, so you will get granted by the God. So then you also can choose your own God. It's not like in that like Christianity or like Muslim, they have only one God. But you can have a different type of God. When you please them, so and then they will, then that's how you get the bless, and you can stay with them, you know. And so somehow in India, they of course they believe in reborn. Then you can reborn again, but in a good life. But you've always been, you know, almost like blessed by the God, you know. And of course, then that God also becomes one of their model. So, like, you know, some of the God like have the valor, power, brief. Some of the God are very charming. So, if you love charming, then you have to follow the God of charming. If you love handsome, you know, so we can attract many. You know, in Indian culture, is a religious strength. It's very different from Chinese actually in some way. So if you love that being a handsome God, then you just follow the handsome God and so forth. Anyway, now, but the difference is that when another group, what we call this Sramana group, with those who renounce the life, they're much more serious about that. It is not just pleasing the God. It's more like, you know, they need to attend something there, and that attainment has to be stay all the time. This is the reason why they, at least in that time in Indian society, they think that if you really have those experiences, if you want to have those experiences, if you have a household life, it's very difficult. You know, not that you cannot experience, but you can really can that much. And especially, there must be much more than that. And given that actually the religion in India, even now, but in those days, of course, if you've been renounced, or either you become a household, kind of what we call a Brahmin priest, you've always been regarded highly, you know. Status is always important. For example, like in America, still like, you know, this is how if they see that, oh, now you're a monk, or monk is fine. But let's say in Italy or something like a Catholic country, but when you're being a priest, right, still somehow people will respect you, right, in general. Especially old time, very much respect you. Of course, that's how you also encourage the people to become that. Nowadays, nobody cares, especially when you go to some other country. Maybe, what, this monk, maybe? Yeah, so that's why now we have less people become a monk and priest, because the status changed now, you know what I'm saying? Nowadays, the status is, you know, this is how the human is. But in India, those status are really, really highly respected. Even now, but imagine those days. Unfortunately, recently I just read some news, there's some scandal now, and I'm not going to talk about it. So, but the other school is like this, when they have attended jhana, they have a link. This kind of jhana is actually the it is a kind of like unification, okay? Unification with the God. So unification with the, I mean here the God is the word Brahma, okay, in a capital letter, Brahma. So, and then they unify with the big God, just a Dhamma in Chinese. So, of course, and also they will believe there was something that unified with them is our soul, right? This is what we call, usually Chinese translate 小我, but actually they don't translate it. Sometimes they translate 神, sometimes they translate 是, it's okay. Those are just, sometimes we say 神是, because Chinese doesn't like one word when you talk. So, sometimes we translate 神, sometimes we translate, and of course sometimes we translate even. Okay. So I mean I or consciousness or so-called the soul, but they translate it like a God, the word. So in the jhana, because you always have a very wonderful state, the mind and calm. This is how very easily to interpret you are the God, because your mind is so pure. In jhana, you never find any problem. Kind of like you don't find anger, you don't find greed, you don't find, of course you still believe you have no delusion, and then you don't find anything. It's so much, when is anything mean anything bad, it's only pure mind. And four jhana have a four jhana distinct, and the thing, and some believe that when you enter the four jhana, this means the God. But some believe, which is believe that this is not actually the ultimate meeting with the God. It's just a kind of mental state. Of course, they don't explain as a mental state. It's a kind of like divine experience. And this kind of divine experience, in their language, is divine experience. But in the Buddhism language, we say the mental state. Okay. So this kind of divine experience is not the unification of God, but you have to reach to the state of called pervasive space. Because when you reach to the pervasive space, you carry the characteristic of the four jhana, I mean, almost like plan, kind of clean-cut place, white, right? However, because in the jhana, four jhana usually is just like the space is a limit. But when it's, then you have, there's a way to teach you actually. Once you reach that stage, you need to learn how to kind of like a little trick. Then you can go to the pervasive space. When you enter the pervasive space, so it's almost like the whole universe becomes the plan, okay? Like a clean cut, like empty space, kind of like that. And of course, that almost like no breath, no, you don't feel the life. I don't mean that's just wrong language. All right, you just stay very quiet and no breath going on. Now, this has to do with, in Indian religion, if you look at all the Vedas, and look at all the Vedas or Upanishad, this is the origin of the Buddhist, the Indian, not Buddhist, the Indian religion text, almost like when you say Bible, right? But of course, when you date back the history, they have have few thousand year history. So they believe that how the God created the world. From the very beginning, there is nothing. So in other words, nothing itself is a God. Okay? From the nothing, then the God have the idea. First, you could say from the void, then you have the idea. It looks like I'm teaching them. But you have to know that picture so that you know actually why the Buddha story is saying that way. Then once you have the idea, then you have the breath. This is different. This is the reason why the breath is so important. The meditation of breath in Indian religion is so important. So B-I-E-A-T-H. And then when you have a breath, then there's a creation. So I mean, of course, creation means a lot of things. You know, like a light. Actually, it's come from a light. Okay, light first, and so forth. Okay. Now this is interesting. This is the so-called the Indian religious idea of the creation. Now, when you do meditation, back it there. First, you see the light, right? And then, if you are in a very advanced stage, you stop the breath. Okay? And then, in more advanced stage, you stop the idea. Okay? Now, when you stop the idea, then you're back to the void. Or you could say nothing. Get enough? Mm-hmm. Now, this has to do with, it's the same thing. Of course, to see the light or to observe the light, you from this stage mean the access concentration. For sure, the light is always there. There's no way the light is not there. Okay. But and then if you can meditate up to the first jhana, the second jhana, the third jhana. So and also if you read between the Indian Upanishad or the Vedanta, or no Vedanta, sorry, wrong, the Vedic or Upanishad, and you'll find it in Indian religion. So in between there, they feel the light because of happy, joy. So that's why creation comes also. So that's in between. In other words, now back to this, when in the jhana, when you're in the first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, you have different kind of happiness, joy there. However, when you're much more in a higher state of the jhana, so all these kind of joy and happiness become refined and refined and refined. And ultimately, almost like, not that, I don't mean it's not there, it's just like they do not belong to the most important thing. So, and then you might be just even able to stop the breath. This is how you enter the fourth jhana. Okay? So when the breath stops, and then how you can stop the idea. I don't mean stop idea have a big, so to stop the idea, firstly, in the 4 jhana there, this is much to do with the Buddhist meditation. Actually, Buddhism are very interesting. They lay out very clearly, not like other religions, just like experience, you know. In the 4 jhana, but if you feel this topic is boring, tell me, okay? Then I can change the subject. So in the 4 jhana, this is the first time I give this topic, so I have to. In the 4 jhana, actually, there are not 4 jhana. Sorry. In this jhana, what we call the rhyme of jhana, and on this stage, some people, they are not only just can stop the breath, they could actually able to trigger a way that you stop idea. So this is why in the 4 jhana you have a place called Asanya Aida, original Aida. It means that, or I would say the rhyme of note form, maybe. Okay. So you were able in Chinese called Wu Xiang Tian. So you come to that state of that. In Indian religion, this is really important. If you can meditate, and not that because just to stop the breath in the 4 jhana, but you are able from there, you also can trigger something that you stop the thought. It means when you stop the thought, it means you have no sense of aware, like you don't feel anything, right? When you don't feel anything, you're almost like, kind of like, my language, I'm sorry, I don't mean it's like that. It's similar to like blank. When you're blank, you can sit for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Of course, in Indian mystical way of belief, you could sit there for 2 months like that. Okay? Whether it's true or not, we don't know. That's the reason why they have this proof, say the Indian sadhu could, meditate and then you could bury them, because they can stop the breath already. You can bury them, and then after a month or how long, I'm digging out and still alive, right? I don't know how to, don't do that, okay? This is not my job. Otherwise, I'm not here to teach you this. I become a cult master, But we just want to understand the religious, how they are, in Indian religion, how they are. So, but now let me just say also from Buddhist perspective, again and again, and like us, when we learn from our teachers, the teacher always warn us, be careful, don't go there, be careful, don't go there, be careful, don't go there, don't go there, don't go there, don't go there. They were so worried about that. Because from a Buddhist perspective, completely different. They don't ask you to go there. Actually, they condemn this stage. But we are not denying the existence of this stage. Get it now? Because from Buddhist perspective, it's very different. Why you want to go there to stay for 1 month? For what? People worship you? That's wrong, right? And in Buddhist perspective, as a monk, you don't want people worship you like a god. You don't want people worship you because your aim is to attain enlightenment or whatever. You are not to show I'm powerful. So, and that's the pride. It's not good. So it's very different perspective. But Indian religion is not. It's a show I have attained with the God. You understand? So this is the reason why you believe in a God, don't believe in a God, have a very different approach. But to Indian, if you can do that, you can with the God. You are with the God. Now, like, we're back to the rational understanding. Why did we say that we attend with God? Because you come to the stop of the idea. Understand? Now, when you're able to completely even stop the idea, now you come to the very beginning of the creation, the void. Okay? Because from the void, you have the idea, one idea, you have the breath, and then you might have some different type of nice feeling. And that's why this is how they believe the Brahma thing. Oh, because I have the breath, and then now the creation comes, and the universe just arises, and we feel happy, have different kind of feelings. And this is then, okay, and how this goes together. The light and also, and then there's the space, and so this is how the Indian think. Okay, now back to this. That's the reason why when the Buddha first went to learn the religion, you could say that he was approaching this kind of, the faith means by the attainment you know what it is. Of course, this attainment still has to do to the attainment itself is to help you to prove that you are with the God, that you are really part of the God, because in Indian religion believe that the whole creation is from a big universe, and then you are just a small of it, the soul is a part of it. Now you can return back to that. Okay. Then, but of course the story goes on. The Buddha must not be satisfied, otherwise we don't have Buddhism. Okay. The Buddha was not satisfied, and thinking that this is maybe even teachers said this is the state of the God, whatever. Actually, we don't know whether this Alala Karma say that way, but this is my interpretation. When I say my mean, I have no proof, okay? But my interpretation that we certainly know that he was under the teacher and this kind of thing. And we certainly also know that actually at that time, most of them, I don't mean everybody, but most of the time we understand when they do the meditation, the jhana and so forth, is in order to reach back to the God, okay? But that's definitely have a proof. You can read the sutra like the, what we call this Fan Dong Jing in Chinese, Brahmajala Sutta, like a deacon in the long discourse. The first sutra of the long discourse, if you're interested, the Buddha lists out their 62 wrong idea of what they think is enlightenment, or because they believe that, some believe that what mean by enlightenment is because when I can unify with God means enlightenment. Okay, now, but if those are serious in meditation, I definitely ask you to read, because nowadays if you look at the either website or anything, they all almost fall into that kind of category, 62 wrong view category. They think, oh, now I have this stage. I am the Buddha now. Oh, I am the... but anyway, back to read the text if you are interested. I just write the name first. Brahmajala Sutra. You have that in Chinese as well. Brahmajala Sutra in Chinese is called Fan Dong Jing. Fan Dong Jing. And okay, and what the Buddha recognizes, his purpose is cut off all the defilements. But even though when he is in the meditation state, he's okay. No problem. No unwholesome mind. All wholesome, all wonderful, all peaceful, all beautiful. But still, he could recognize there's something not right, because he still have anger. It's not completely gone. He still have attachment or whatever. It's still there. He aware that. Especially when he immerse himself from the meditation. I mean, when he not in a meditation state. Let's say he might be sitting there for such a wonderful time, having this wonderful state of mind. But it could be when that state is gone, you cannot retain the state 24 hours. I mean, you may be able to retain, let's say, one month, you can retain for 1 year, right? So he knew that this is called. So he have a very different way of understanding. This is definitely depicted in another Buddhist text. I mean, sutta. I mean, the Buddhist, you could say the Buddhist Bible. He said he realized that because this should not be the way of ultimate cut off the defilements, because even though he does not have the wrath, let's say for example take anger as a one, even though he doesn't have the wrath anger in the mind, but he knew he still have the anger there, right? But this kind of idea in those days, 2,600 years ago, it's a strange idea. How can you have no anger at all? But to the Buddha, he thinks that it's not. If there's an anger, it means you have something. If you have something, you bound to be not able to completely cut off your problem. So it's a very different idea. So That's why he left the teacher. Even the teacher say, you are such a marvelous student. You could stay with me. You can become my assistant. You can become, basically, you can teach them. No, less than a year he could do that. Now, maybe nowadays you think it's nothing. No, in India, you have followed a teacher for a long time. You want to be assistant? Come on. That's very hard to get it, right? That kind of position, even in old China, the same, right? If you follow a teacher, even learn the music, can you just within a year, teacher, I want to perform the music now, I can teach the student. Do you think you can do that? No, come on. No, it have to understand that kind of culture. Not like in America, no. Nowadays in America, you just learn 10-day meditation and then you can go without to teach. Yeah, lots of like that. But it's different, it's great. So anyway, but the teacher must be recognized. The Prince Siddhartha was a very different, quite a smart student, quite one of the talented, That's the reason he asked him, don't go. Actually, you could just help me to teach. But he didn't want to, because he had, in normal position, people would not deny that, because you'll be really recognized by the teacher. But he didn't want that, because he had his idea. This is, if you look at in a religious perspective, he was repelled at that time, per se. Okay. He was not really easy to satisfy, content with what that is. He need to look further what really is the truth. That's why he came to the second teacher, what we call Ramaputra. So when he met the Ramaputra able to teach him the meditation also up to Anyway, the Ramaputra able to talk to Buddha up to the place called, actually it's not, he taught that, that's the first thing. I don't guess, I can't remember usually how the English translate it, but I just, nothing. It's just my translation, so I don't want to spend too much time on translation. So, because in the further meditation, you will be able to meditate, and all over the space, like everything is just space. And then after that stage, you are able to even also because when you have a concept of space, it's still there's a concept of space. And in the further meditation, you will be able to learn how to remove that kind of consciousness. So you don't even have the concept of the further space. Okay, this is what the next steps. And after the next step, then you're also able to remove the concept of the space, basically. Okay, so it become no space, but just imagine it means more vast, more profound, something like that. When he went to see the other teacher called Ramaputra actually able to admonish him to learn the meditation. Or I shouldn't say meditation, I mean the way that to reach the God, maybe. That by entering, that means even no concept of the space. But the Buddha was so talented. I mean, I shouldn't say the Buddha, say the Prince Siddhartha was so talented. So he actually even go further and some other stage called the nothing space. So when he entered those stages of nothing space, he reported to the teacher called the Ramaputra. The Ramaputra was surprised. He said, being a teacher, in those days the teacher mean he had to stay with a lot of students. Or usually we say that mean 500. Actually it means 500 mean a few hundreds. And he stayed with a few hundred teachers, students. He stayed with a few hundred students. And he told the Prince Siddhartha, he couldn't even reach that stage. And actually you are so marvelous because you reached the stage that my father reached. So that means that Ramaputra. That's the reason why he's called the name of Ramaputra, because he is the son of the Rama. Okay? So So the son of the Rama, because you could say the school start is because of the Rama, okay? And he's the second generation, you could understand that way. So it's the son of the Rama, told the Prince Siddhartha, you reach this kind of nothing space, it's just my father did it. I couldn't do it. You know? So, but this is also show one thing is their relationship about their practice also, you know. They are not really take this as like for status or, you know, kind of pride or what, but he say, wow, you must be very talented, you must be very different because my father did it, but I couldn't do it, but you could do it. So that's the reason why he also asked the Buddha, stay. Since you could do better than I, and you could actually even reach the stage that the founder as a father did it, so then the Buddha also declined that for the same reason. Now, we got to one of the interesting, maybe good, we're almost time. Then I will left some other thing about enlightenment part for tomorrow. Okay. So they, if we kind of like anticipate you to come in tomorrow. Now, when he comes to that part, then the Buddha realized that, oh, actually, it's the same problem. Even though his mind become more refined, the anger or the delusion or whatever you call this attachment, so little, so subtle. Imagine when you have a meditative mind all the time. It's very hard to discern. You have pride, you have this anger, you have this what, you know. But he could almost recognize that there's still there. He doesn't believe this is the way that you can cut off the reincarnation. Because the Buddha actually, his aim is, he thinks when anyone still have reincarnate, that itself, it's still, don't tell me that you will be a divine. Because however divine you are, you still have reincarnated, it means that is not the end. That is not the final solution, right? So when he reached that, he left the place, what did he do? Everyone know. What did he do? Huh? No, and he didn't go there yet. Well, yes, maybe he was meditating under the tree, but yes, he actually go another extreme, where nowadays in India you still exist. Now you started to not just have this kind of wonderful feeling, meditation with the God, torture yourself. That's what we call kusin. Self-mortification. So of course in Chinese. And it's interesting, this is one part here. This kind of story are not well illuminated in Buddhist literature. A lot of topic about this, more than this, okay? But that's why I'm saying, you know, I become almost like a commentator, giving you why because of those reasons. They think that everybody knows that reason. But this is something that's just very new. And at the time, in Buddha's time, when if you can follow spirituality by fasting, I don't eat, or I can just show people I eat a little a day, powerful, okay? And also by tolerate the way that nobody can tolerate. So, I mean, the Buddha described that when he followed that path for a long time, actually, at least for 4 or 5 years. Just tolerate the physical body, kind of like, almost like you show your toleration. So he could hang himself like a bed with the feet, okay? I asked you to do walking meditation, just 25 minutes. Oh, I'm so tired. Right? Imagine. There, you need to hang the whole day with the feet, okay, feet on the tree. Hook it there, upside down, for 1 day. How determination you need to do. And he said, and he would just hook there for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, unnecessarily kicking a bear, and he just come down and then get hooked there. He doesn't sleep. Even if he sleeps, he need to hook his feet on the tree. And it's not just hooking there, okay? And of course there's certain training. the training is also to do with the breath. It's very clear to do with the breath because in his description he said, and he could feel the wind, how the wind go in the belly. From the belly, how the wind started to spread, in the belly. Then he felt almost like his belly is going to explode. The pain is unbearable, but he still, bear with that. And then up to the point that the wind then go down. Go down here means he was upside down, right? So the wind come to his head and roaring like the hurricane. The word hurricane is not, now you know the hurricane now. Imagine, we are not saying something like what, but imagine if they're true that somebody observed the whole body, the body inside is almost like hurricanes there. It's terrifying, right? Right? Nowadays even people meditate, they feel so calm and they even terrified. No, this thing I have to say actually, this is for sure one reason why when you do meditation, if you run in the wrong, I won't say wrong way, at least not the Buddhist way. You have to be sometimes very careful because really it could terrify you. And it's the wind and he felt his head is almost split to 1,000 pieces like that. But he still bear with it because he believed that. At least he recognized one thing. I'm not going to give you all of description. Actually now they always said, I never find a satisfactory Buddhist book about the life of the Buddha. Always the life of Buddha is just almost like a romantic story. But I think this kind of what the Buddha said, he had encountered almost nobody write about that. Okay, but that definitely there's a lot of record in the old Buddhist literature. But you should look at that. I rather ask you to read those things. You will get more inspired by how the Buddha was, how the principle at that time was trying so hard. So, however, he never actually condemned this, what we call the self-modification. Why? Anyone? Because if I just talk, it's, if I'm going to sleep, I want to drink some water. Okay? Yeah. Anyone? Why? The Buddha almost like didn't really think, I spend my time of summer thinking completely useless. He didn't use the word completely useless. Of course, he recognizes useless, but it's not completely useless. Why?
Understanding suffering, body suffering.
That's the good of the, yeah, it might be true, I don't know, but that was, at least is, what you said is according with the teachings, might be. Yeah, any other?
Learning process.
Huh?
It's just a learning process.
You think it's because
you have to experience different.
Okay. You think that was he didn't condemn too much because it's one of the learning process? Yeah, it might be true. Yeah. So you at least when you write this, you get good mark also. Because I couldn't argue say no, it's not. Like, and yes.
So he experiences sensations of the body.
Yeah, that's also part of it. Since his experience, the sensational part of it. Yeah.
This is the breathing.
Okay, and maybe the Buddha see a different aspect of the breathing technique. Yeah, any? That's actually my true. I mean,
maybe it's a way of getting rid of negativities. 消业障.
That I cannot say for sure, but probably I will give you few marks. I don't know whether I can give you a lot of marks because no, that's much more like the Chinese or thing. If I'm in China, I would say very good. In Indian concept, not sure, but could be. I cannot say yet. No, yeah. Certainly, it's not totally against the Buddhist teachings. Yes.
I think this. Okay, so I think Buddha realized our body and mind are the 5 aggregates are the body and mind. So after this self-modification is trying to deal with the
yeah, the form. You mean
yes,
the body?
the form.
Yeah. It gets a little relate to what they said. He understands a little bit more about the material side of it. Maybe you could say that. But I need to say one thing first. Actually, that time, this is certainly for scholars now. I understand. I can, this is just so far with the sources we have. In those days, in India, they don't have the concept of 5 aggregates. The concept of 5 aggregates as taking a person as a 5 aggregates is only in the Buddhist tradition. So, in other words, during that time, the Buddhism hasn't wasn't there, so there's no such a thing about the 5 decades. I mean, you're right in a way, maybe it's about material, but just don't put it the 5 decades, because when you write something, you need to be careful. They don't have a concept of 5 decades at the time. Okay, yes?
Oh, I said maybe it's a test of determination. So like, if you can't even suffer through that, then like, how are you going to like really find out the way that nobody has found out to break through incarnation? That's just what
But you, am I right? You mean that actually that's what the Buddha, why the Buddha didn't condemn
Right.
the technique totally, not rejecting the
Right.
technique totally, because that's it's at least it's like kind of helping to cultivate this determination. You mean by that? Okay, all right, okay, oh, yeah. Any come on? Yes.
Oh, I think he want to rule out all the alternatives.
Hey.
I think Buddha want to out. I mean, he want to rule out all the alternatives.
That's a way that the Buddha can rule out the other
Yeah.
alternative.
Yeah.
Then why don't we just use the word Siddhartha, because when we use a Buddha, I mean, presuming attained enlightenment, he hasn't attained enlightenment
Yeah.
yet.
The
Yeah.
prince want to
So-
wanted to
To rule out the
alternatives.
alternative.
Yeah. Alternative.
A
So
little-
then he
so
think
deep.
only the middle way. Because
No,
the
it's
middle
not
way-
Okay, you go a little further already. Yeah, but that's later he found the middle way. That time he didn't. Yeah, you could say that. That he. I know. Okay, I know what you mean. You mean that actually because of this, or he could find the middle way, something like that. He could see the other angle, not necessarily on this angle, or another alternative. Okay, one more maybe. Anyone? Yes.
My interpretation is he tried to teach people nothing is everything and everything is nothing.
I think it's. I'm not sure about that.
Well, that's my interpretation.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I don't know how to respond to that.
Because
Okay.
you have no way to respond to it.
Yes, please. Yes.
500 years
At
ago.
that point, the Buddha wasn't the Buddha yet.
Yeah. Yes.
So
It wasn't.
he was trying out all kinds of things, and he just eliminated this one as not being suitable for his goals. But he didn't know really what his goal was.
Okay.
He found out later, when he got enlightened, he knew what he was looking for, but at this point, he didn't even know that.
Yeah, he didn't even know that. But actually, I was kind of like asking the question is that, so even though after said he attained enlightenment, he was not totally condemned this modification. Comparatively, actually, he kind of like half praise of this way. If you really look at closely, he must have the reason, of course, if you trust him. So, you want to say something?
I
Yes.
have a question. Do you have an example of something he did condemn for comparison's sake?
Huh?
Do you have an example of something he did condemn for comparison's sake? Because he didn't condemn this, but is there something that he condemned?
Well, he was condemning that if so, yeah, okay, that certainly has to do with the first sermon he gave. After he got the enlightenment, of course, he gave the first sermon for the 5 recluses who live with him. And the first thing he was condemning that the people who are having a renouncing life, but they indulge themselves in sensual pleasure, he was condemned, complete condemned with that. At that time, very strict, complete condemned. I don't think the lay people like to hear this, but this is not nothing to do with pleasing everybody. But we have to follow what the faithful in the text. You can find this text in all language, or Chinese, whatever, because this is the first sermon the Buddha given. So he was completely condemned, but for this modification, he didn't totally condemn. But he knew that this is not the way for enlightenment, but he was not totally condemning. For example, those people who want to get enlightenment, as far as that the first sermon, go back to read the first sermon. You will get clear pictures. Those are very important. When he gave the first sermon, more kind of depict his mission statement, right? And his mission statement said very clearly that if you are become renunciant, he was talking, but you're still enjoying essential pleasure. So those are ignoble, not noble at all. But interesting, of course, not noble, it does not conduce you to enlightenment. No, it does not give you the real happiness and so forth. But at least when he mentioned the same thing, that when you follow the self-modification, as the 5 recluses who follow him did the same thing. I'm sure you know the story. So, but he didn't use the word no noble. He ignored the term. And when you do a lot of different versions and read it, that term definitely it's cut. It's not there. So it means at least from the very outset when the Buddhist monk, or you could say those arahants, wanted to retain the Buddhist text, that certainly all agree with that. The Buddha didn't say that it's ignoble. Of course, he didn't say it's noble, but he didn't use the term it's ignoble. Ignoble, not noble. So it's almost like indirectly, at least he didn't say it's a noble thing, didn't praise it, but he didn't say this is not noble thing. You get what I'm saying? All right, now, actually, the important is that I think somebody pointed out a little bit. All what you said is correct. I didn't mean it's not. But let's say, I remember when we studied in the university, this is how you do. You may have this kind of question. Of course, you are not studying in the university now for this subject. Actually, we didn't have this question. I mean, say you could. So, why the Buddha didn't condemn this? You must give the reason. Not because what the people tell you need to think. According with the Buddhist teaching or understanding history background, that you give the reason why. Okay. So, one thing is certainly, when he did the self-modification, he realized when someone, if they could see the suffering part, one thing for sure, the mind always wanted to be escape from the suffering. And someone can learn how to be humble. Only that. Right? This is, I think, that what mean by that. Actually, original word means tapas. But tapas translated in Chinese usually translate as le. But sometimes simply just translate fu xin. But two words also been translated in Chinese. Because of this, now, and how he can become a Buddha also. So even the Chinese have that, but nobody talk about it in Chinese. But the Chinese don't have that record, but in Pali, certainly it's very popular. And when he recognized that this still is not the way to lead him to enlightenment, he must walk another way. It's said that then he remembered when he was a little child. So he was sitting under the apple tree. Apple tree is very important, okay? And under the apple tree, and he did his meditation, and then he was in the 4 jhana, yeah. And he felt that states are so wonderful. But here actually I always have a question, even though I have my answer, I'm not sure. He had the 4 jhana before, right? Under the teacher. But why he only remembered when he was a kid that he has the same 4 jhana and he had that kind of wonderful state? Why he wanted that? Actually, this is not, because we don't have time. I don't want to discuss that now. We are really almost like a lecture. This is an interesting thing. Anyway, back to the story. So then the Buddha, when he remembered that, he knew that he needed to bring this back. Okay. So, however, he doesn't have, had no strength. He doesn't have a physical strength because he was self-modification for so long. The torturing, weak. Yeah, you know, the story depicted that he said he was so lean. You could see all his vein, the green all on the hand. And you could see his belly. His belly can touch on the back. That, so all the bone, like a skeleton, you know. And his whole, he was, you know, actually he was kind of, his complexity, he's about 6'4", I think. Yeah, if you look at his size is 6'4", and he used to be like, actually he's more like a Caucasian. I have to sorry to say that. But his skin is not completely Caucasian white, but he carry a little yellow. But he still is, if you look at more closely, he's more like Caucasian. But and then he then what I would say is that then he was completely like a skeleton. He had no any physical effort, like energy. So then he knew that he needs some good nutrition. This is why he accepted the meal. It was said, you know. So in those days in India, you have a meal mean you're very luxurious. You are not following this kind of modification. Like nowadays people do fasting. Imagine if you say I fast for many years, I'm a great guru, and suddenly you have a wonderful food. Nobody trusts you anymore. That's how the society is. But anyway, that's the reason why he accepted that. Once he accepted that, then those five companions, you know, who follow him together to practice. And that's also very interesting story there, but you need to go back to read that. Don't just read the story, think about it. And there are many things you can pick out, a lot of interesting things. So what happened is, and then they saw that, they knew that, of course I think it's not because saw the Buddha drinking the meal. Suddenly there's something he knew, his idea started to change already. So nobody like people have a different idea. So, you know, and then they were disappointed with it. They thought he would be the big guru in the world. Now he's corrupted, so they left him. So then he alone, actually by alone is always a good thing, I tell you, trust me. No responsible. Somehow you can do what you like to do. No, I'm not saying you play in a computer game or whatever. But you know, and he will just have a time to think about something now. So and when he think about that, and then he sit on the tree, and then there was a time, another important thing, he got wonderful food, right? Remember, I forgot her name. What's her name? Anyone? Oh, I would feel my accent if I'm still in university. I was thinking. Anyway, I forgot her name. You know, a chef, a rich woman, but she had many, like a chef, like many goat. You know, in Chinese always say that. She had many goats, and then she thought she could not get pregnant. She thought somehow she got a sign. Today is her birthday. She like back to his tradition, prasada. She should offer to the god. Then she would get pregnant and they have a child. You know. So somehow she had that strong faith, and usually because she's rich, she asked a maid to cook. But that time she think, I have to cook myself. That's how you get really blessing by the God. So that's the reason why she cooked herself. And of course there's a lot of mystical story there also, because the heavenlies being realized this is a time that Siddhartha is going to be a Buddha. So that's why they make the food more than just a normal food. The heavenly ingredient is inside, okay? And that's another beautiful story, but in your culture maybe it's not, but you have to imagine in Indian culture, wow, he not only just ordinary food, but the divine ingredient. So it's interesting actually. You know why I want to tell this story? Because when I was in Sri Lanka, they have a very different response. But to me, so what? You know. But then later on I knew I'm wrong. I cannot understand the story in my perspective. I should at least in the position to understand why they feel this story is so important. Okay. Anyway, so he got the first soul and he knew he had energy, totally have energy now. That's why he was sitting in one of the trees. If you go to Buddha Gaya, if you have a chance, and he was applying this jhana inside. And his experience of the self-modification, but not fasting, but that. Then he knew he's almost ready. Then that's why he left the tree. Actually, there was that kind of tree is a salad tree before. He left, and he crossed over the river. If you go to India, you know where it's at. He crossed over the river, and there's a kind of what now they would call a Bodhi tree. Then he knew that he just need a little time. That time enough for him to get enlightenment. So then he sat there, he knew, if I don't attain enlightenment, I don't want to stand up. Actually, this kind of wish, I make many times already. But in those days, I thought, why I could do it? Why I could do it, okay? But now I know at least, okay? Well, next time I can talk about that. So he had the jhana, bring it back, and he also understand this thing. So this is what I'm going to give you a talk about tomorrow. So, and then he applied the both things together. So this is why I asked you this self-modification question about especially the modification, the suffering part. Why? Don't forget, in the Buddhist teachings, the first noble truth, the truth of suffering. So then this is, he reject the one part called the self-indulgent and reject the other part called the self-modification, but go avoid the two into the middle path. Okay? And then this, in other words, means we are going to say about something for the Four Noble Truth as well. So that's why he knew that and he able to assimilate it, of course, in what we call a wise way. So at the end, then he attained the Buddha. In other words, then he was the first Arahant. Now, I mean, never forget the Buddha story. He tells lots of things there. And this is, just let me end the conclusion before we have a break and do our meditation. I always said, one of the things I like Buddhism, I don't want just for, I'm a monk, right? I have a duty as a missionary, right? Is why I like it. Because if you look at all religions, teachers or founders, all are wonderful, but he is the only unique one telling you what did he face, what problem he faced, and how did he break through it, and why then he could reach the state he is. What that is so-called, whether you believe or not, on the enlightenment. Okay. Now, thank you for your attention, and it's that we stop here. Okay. Right, have 10 minutes break. I will see you later.